Hey, everybody. We're back. We're back podcasting. Had a bit of a hiatus. Some of it was just because I got very, very busy at work with some video projects and photography projects. I was out of state for a while. I also went on a sweet vacation with my daughter, Hannah. Went to Paris and also Madrid, Spain. And it was awesome. But man, it's time to get back at the podcasting. Going to go at it hard all summer. So that makes me very excited to talk about my guest for this episode, which is David Wenzel. He's an author and an amazing dude. And so here's the little intro that I wrote for him. David has lived with an inoperable cancerous brain tumor for the last 10 years. After initially being diagnosed, David's life completely fell apart, and I do mean it, completely fell apart. His first wife divorced him shortly after his diagnosis of brain cancer. The cat they'd shared together collapsed mid-stride across the dining room floor and died. The cat just flat fell over and died. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of David's story. So imagine dealing with all of that stuff plus a terminal brain cancer diagnosis. David was only given 5 years left to live on this planet. And that was if he was lucky. And the amazing part of David's journey is that today he does feel extremely lucky. And he's the happiest he's ever been in his life. And David's incredibly raw, honest, and oftentimes hilarious life story is told in his new book, Thank You, Kung Fu. I highly recommend his book. It's because I believe it will help you, or maybe some of you love. It certainly helped me. It's a great read. Pick it up on Amazon. I put a link here. And but on the podcast, Dave and I dig into a ton of real life shit. You know, it's time to get real in this conversation. I think the conversation's inspiring. It's emotional, and I actually cried during our conversation in the podcast. I cried the very first for my podcasting career. I cried in front of a guest. You'll find out why, but it was good. It was a good cry. It was one of those healthy cries. David's one of the most fascinating and talented people I've ever met. So enjoy this latest episode of Full Exposure with Brian Kelly with David Wenzel. He's a writer, author, cancer survivor, and founder of Bent Not Broken. All right, enjoy, you guys.
Rock. So it's not heavy, but like just really good, solid.
Nice. Well, I'm going to check them out.
Stuff. Yeah.
I've been into this like really, I'm on this vintage soul R&B kick, and there's just, if you start digging around, there's so many talented artists that you just aren't getting any airplay. There's this woman, her name is Lady Ray, W-R-A-Y, and she has this song right now I cannot get off my playlist. I probably listen to it 15 times a day. Yeah. It's called Guilty, and maybe that's why I feel,
it could be
convicted.
Could be. Yeah.
No, it's just this. It sounds so good, and but anyway,
I gotta give a big shout out to my boy, Zach Boswell. He is putting out albums right now. Like he'll put together his own albums, and they are amazing.
Have you worked with him on like scores and things, or
no? He's an advertising dude here in town. Well, he just moved out to L.A. But I just have to say props to Zach. His entries are just amazing. Just music you never would have ever found, and he's putting them all together. They're just awesome. So I love listening to those too.
Yeah. Does he put them up on Spotify or
he
something?
Does, yeah.
I'll have to I'll have to check them out.
And they're all different names, but you follow him and you'll see some of those on there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, talking about movie scores, like we've known each other. I don't even know how long we've known each other. Maybe only 7 years, 6 years.
Maybe. Yeah. I thought it was longer than that, but
really?
Yeah.
When were you diagnosed? I'm trying to
2009. So that's been 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
I think I met you after your diagnosis, or just before.
Yeah,
it wasn't long before, because actually the first time we really spent any substantial time together was when Ben Gott and I came over to your place and we did a little photo shoot.
Yeah.
And we had a project going that never really took off, but Ben and I were thinking about doing a kind of a zine but it didn't go anywhere just because of our schedules. But you were going to be a subject for that, and then we did that shoot, and
I screwed it up, didn't I?
you totally like it was not.
Well, this isn't
it
gonna
killed.
work.
It killed the whole magazine. Ben saw the photos and he's like, what are we doing?
We're done with this.
We don't know anybody.
Get rid of
cool."
him. Yeah.
No, but I was impressed because you had originally. So we're gonna jump all over the place.
Yeah,
There's so
let's
much
do
to
it.
unpack. But
Yeah.
you're somebody I love. Like literally, seriously.
Thank you, buddy.
I love your spirit. I love everything about you. I love your family and just your approach to life. And but you had this apartment, and you were in like a really shitty part of your life at that point.
No joke.
You'd been diagnosed.
Yeah.
Your marriage had split up.
Yeah.
You kind of had a bachelor pad.
It was the actual name of the apartment was called the Bachelor Apartments. Looking back, I think that was a tough joke God was playing on me at the moment. But yeah,
Literally, that's.
and so it was a full 1-bedroom apartment, but like with my ex-wife, my last marriage, like I didn't want to bring anything over. I wanted to keep everything I had at her house / our house, so that when we got to back together, I wouldn't have to bring all this stuff over. So I literally had like nothing,
Yeah, it was pretty bare bones. It was a cool place, but in an old part of town called Heritage Hill. But what I distinctly remember is you were on a very holistic path, and you have terminal brain cancer, right? Or how do you describe your cancer at this point?
Originally, you started out as a grade 2 oligoastro diagnosis. I can't remember the name of it now.
Yeah.
Oligoastroglioma, grade 2, and since then they would have to do another biopsy on it to make it official, but they think it's a grade 3 astrocytoma.
Okay.
Inoperable terminal brain cancer. So they can't get in to get it.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And so what I recall, and why I asked that, was this. At the time, early on, that I recall vividly was that you went on a very holistic path of treatment at the beginning. And without diving into all the weeds of that, I know there's a million reasons why you chose that, and it was probably the path meant for you. But you had this sauna, a homemade sauna, which like a bunch of 4 by 4 foot by 4 foot. You made basically what looked like a homeless tent in your bedroom with what kind of bulb was that? Just like
it was just like a super hot bulb. Like you plug it in and turn it on, and it raised the temperature.
And you used to go in this thing, and I'll post this photo that I shot of David 10 years ago in his sauna at home, and it'll just blow you away in terms of just like what you were going through at the time, and I wouldn't even pretend to understand what your journey's been like since then. But just as a way to what were you? What it was just sweating and just getting things out and toxins and things like that.
Yeah, I mean,
totally homemade.
At that point, luckily my brother-in-law at that time had made that for me, so I'm not very handy. But at that point in my life, like I felt like just overwhelmed by everything, Yeah. And to sit naked in this sauna in the middle of my bedroom, it's the only place it would fit. And just sweat and sweat and sweat to the point of nearly passing out,
Yeah.
And then just getting all of that, essentially toxins out of my body, and then go run and hop into a freezing cold shower to close up the pores to keep the toxins from coming back in. So I was essentially detoxing by doing that. But at the same time, it was detoxing my brain.
Yeah.
I mean, the thoughts that were going through my head, the images that were going through my head were just so... I'd say horrible, but just so depressing that it put my body in a new state to be able to handle those things where it couldn't.
Well, in some way, I would imagine it kept you active in fighting in a sense, because it'd be very hard. I don't know what it's like. Have you been able to articulate what? There's been a couple moments in my life. It didn't deal with my health directly, but with my kids, where some words came out of a doctor's mouth that just before they completed that sentence, your life was one way. And then when the sentence finished, your life is completely upside down and shaken out.
I've got 2 of them.
Yeah.
The first one was when after I hit my head and went to Mayo Hospital, I love it how people always say, I got hurt and the best doctor in the country was right next to me, So anyway, I got hurt and the best doctor in the country. No, he was like literally like U.S. News and World Report, the best neurologist or something like that who did surgery on me. He said, David, your tumor is like chicken wire growing in the middle of a birthday cake. If we were to take out the tumor, we would destroy the birthday cake. And that was like a really unique visual for me to hear right at the beginning of like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like I can actually, we've all felt birthday cake and we've all felt chicken wire, and to be able to put those in my own little head made a lot of sense to me.
And it's also, just to wrap that up, that's why it's inoperable. You can't
get past the chicken wire to take out that little section of birthday cake below it.
Sure.
And the second one I heard was after I came back from Mayo, I met with Michael McLaughlin here at Continuum Healing, his business, and we had a heart-to-heart that just like destroyed me and really like made me measure who I was as a man and where I wanted to be in the future. And so at that point in time, I chose not to do conventional medicine, which is couldn't do surgery, but chemotherapy and radiation. Mm-hmm. And there's actually 4. The 4th one was observing. Doctors never tell you that. So my doctor called me up. I went in the day before I was starting to do my radiation, and they fitted me for a mask. I was ready to go. And the day of my first radiation, I said, I'm going to observe. I'm not going to do radiation. And she kind of like flipped out on me, like not typical doctor speak.
Right.
She flipped out and was like, what are you talking about? Like, you have to do something. If you don't do something, this tumor is going to keep growing. And so I said, I'm really sorry. I just feel I need to go with my gut on this. And I can't do this. I can't start this up right now.
Yeah.
And she goes, David, if you do this, you are choosing your own death. And that just hit me. You're coming from a doctor's mouth.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, okay. That that was another level.
Emotional leverage on you.
Yeah.
But what sustained you? So, despite that, most people, and not David Wenzel, as we find out, if a doctor is telling you, "Listen, idiot, you're really everything we know about medicine and what you have, you need to follow these paths," and you had an inner sort of compass that was different. Explain that, how you found that and your commitment to that.
Yeah, well, first off, when I was growing up, my dad was in the Air Force, and then he retired from the Air Force and became a PA. So I was in about junior high when he would be like handing out pills and be like, take this pill, see if you feel this one or this one. So I was like already kind of like, I don't necessarily like this. However, I did enter college to major in medicine, so go figure. Anyway, I would say, whether it's good or bad, I have a natural tendency to do the gutsiest thing you can think of. Mm-hmm. And at this time, I wasn't trying to make a gutsy move for the sake of making a gutsy move. I had heard enough research, I'd heard enough of statistics to know that if I made this move to not go down the conventional road, it would be harder, but there was a decent chance of outliving my prognosis. And so it was a really tough decision. Yeah. I prayed tons, is this the way I want to go? Is this what I really want to do? And chose that, I was going to go down this road. And of course, the conventional doctors just flipped their lid and didn't know what to do with themselves. And I just said, I gotta try this.
And originally they gave you how long to live?
5 to 7 years to live.
And you're at 10 years.
Coming up on 10 years.
So it's all gravy train from here, right?
That's right. That's right. And people always say like, oh, you're alive another year. I'm like, oh no, yes, I'm alive another year. This means something to me. Yeah.
No, well, we can talk about, I want to go into that sort of like later, but if there's a way, I just know your story's so complicated and that I know that there's snippets that I know pretty well from knowing you, but if there's a linear way that makes it easier for you to get through it, but we can do that. So, let's roll it back a little bit before that. You're a writer. You've worked in the film industry. You were an actor. You've had so meander up through. I'm interested in your professional career, but also, how that led to you naturally writing your story, your amazing story in your book, Thank You, Kung Fu. And so after you grew up in Nebraska, and how the heck did you get to Michigan?
I mean, I was born in Papillion, just right outside of Omaha, and then my dad, who's in the military, we moved to England for 5 years. And so I moved back one month late to get into kindergarten and had this thick British accent, and nobody would talk to me. They all thought I was a communist. So I probably set the record for fastest to lose accent.
Wait a minute. Let's unpack that, because isn't that like middle America, like just the stereotype of like just because you have an English accent, they think
I'm probably going to attack them, even if it's a British accent. So yeah. Anyway, so I came back and learned right away, like if I need people to like me, I need to kind of perform. And so even in kindergarten, when nobody would talk to me because I had this accent, I would, learn how to tell jokes and stuff. And so that was kind of like me growing up, was being just a complete jokester in the age of, Ace Ventura and Will Ferrell and all these people. Like I like clommed onto this idea that I could be funny if I would do these things that these people were doing.
Yeah.
And
as a way to be accepted.
Totally. Yeah. And so then I was always tiny. I loved sports more than anything in the world. All I wanted to do was play sports, and I was tiny. I was essentially a year behind everybody else in my class, and I grew late. I matured very late. So I was I hit 100 pounds when I was a sophomore in high school, and I was just tiny, and I couldn't compete. I went to a large high school, a very competitive high school, and just couldn't make any of the teams, and that really bummed me out. But so then I was like, I like acting. I played the trumpet. I was extremely great at playing the trumpet. Never really caught hold. Like I didn't want to do it forever.
Are you still playing the trumpet?
No, I haven't.
Wait. You still have amazing lips, though.
Thank you. Yes. No, but I did love playing the trumpet, and always at the 50-yard line, every football game playing a solo, and but I still love sports. But I also got into acting, and so when I was 16 years old, Alexander Payne, a director, brought the movie Election.
I think I've heard of Alexander Payne.
Have you?
He seems to have made his way through most of Hollywood.
Totally.
Made some of the best films of all time.
Totally. Yeah. So he came back and brought a script called...
Can we get him on the podcast?
Sure.
Can you throw a line to him?
I will.
David's texting.
He said he'll be on in 2 minutes.
Yeah, great. He's flying to Grand Rapids right now.
And so I did not. So I'm in this drama class, and I didn't want to audition because I know I have that sucky feeling that if I try something and I really want something, I'm not going to get it. So I say I don't want to try out. I'm above this, And but my teacher, Mr. Nienhauser, said, no, you have to try out. It's part of the class. You have to experience this. And I go, okay. So probably the reason I got it was because I went in there not wanting it. And I said my lines probably like a normal kid and not like a typical teenage actor. Well, what happened to your eye? And so I went in there. I was like, what happened to your eye? Which was my line. And I got the part. And so sure enough, a month later, I'm sitting in a makeup trailer with Matthew Broderick on my right and Reese Witherspoon on my left, my mind is just blown up. I have no idea what's going on, and so I did that scene with Matthew.
Well, I know Matthew Broderick was a major star. What about Reese Witherspoon at that point?
She done one. It was the movie she did with Ryan Felipe and. Another girl where they were all Cruel Intentions. Cruel Intentions had come out just before this one.
My archive of Reese Witherspoon films is pretty light. I think she's
an Oscar winner, my friend.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm just saying that the let's make it real nerdy. The type of vehicles she's normally in aren't what I But I understand you're probably friends. But you had to say that she's an Oscar winner.
Yeah, so here's the interesting part. When we're on set, Matthew Broderick and I are sitting next to each other at lunch, the days that we're shooting, And he keeps asking about my life. He's like, what are you up to? What are you doing? And I said, I'm actually practicing for the chorus line, a film we're doing. And he goes, and so Matthew Broderick's really into like Broadway and stuff.
Yeah.
So he goes, that's great. Like you're doing like the whole thing. I go, no, we had to get it down to about a half hour to actually participate with it. And he goes, what are you going to do about the song? And I go, the song? He goes, yeah, tits and ass. And I go, yeah. So we can't compete if we're actually saying those words, so we had to change them. And he goes, you changed the words? I said, yeah.
Is this a public school?
Yeah. What did you change them to? I said, this and that. He goes, you changed tits and ass to this and that? Are you kidding me? He like stands up, and he's putting on his own show, of course. But
yeah.
And he goes, I want you to come to my trailer tomorrow morning. And I'm like, okay, yeah. So I do, and I come the next morning, and I walk into his little trailer, and he's got boxer shorts and a massive white V-neck T-shirt on, just hanging out, And we sit down. He's like, "You want a grapefruit?" And I'm like, "No, I'm okay. I don't want to throw anything up on your table here." And he sits down. So we keep talking, and he kind of comes to this like conclusion. And he kind of goes like, "David, in this life, you're going to have to choose between tits and ass or this and that. And I want you to make the right decision." And that line right there was literally like the moment where I turned from a boy into a man. Like it should have been my dad. My dad was not there, but Matthew Broderick, he actually gave me the line that said, "You are correct. I am going to do this."
Yeah.
And so later that day, I was filming with Reese Witherspoon. Unfortunately, this scene was cut out of the movie. But she's making the sign and just frantic, trying to become the president, and I'm helping her out. And I turned to her in the script. I said, Tracy, would you like to go out with me sometime? And she goes, no, I'm too busy. I got to take care of this. I got to blah 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 blah. And I go, okay. And that was the scene. And they all clapped. Oh, good job, David. And then afterwards, I go, Reese, I want to take you on a date. And she just laughed, just thought it was so funny. And so I did. I actually took her on a little tiny coffee across the street date. It probably lasted 20 minutes tops. But anyway, I took
How sweaty were your palms?
Oh my gosh. Oh, just horrible. But I did. I took an Oscar winner on a date.
No, awesome.
Yeah. So that was my I'd been in plenty of like plays and stuff before then, but that was like my first like realization of whoa, like this is a whole. I saw the whole industry in front of me. 100 people on set. Yeah, big film. Yeah. And actually, strangely enough, when I was on set that day, I was like, I don't want to be an actor. Like I sit around all day, and then they need 10 seconds out of me. Like I do that every day, And so then I was more interested in like directing, and then I saw all the stuff that Alexander Payne was going through, and kind of through this whole process, what I learned is I do want to be involved in storytelling, but I needed to find a different way to do it.
Yeah.
And then in college, a buddy of mine, Santino Stoner, and I kind of had a big sit down and said, we want to create film, but we want to do it differently. And we kind of came to the conclusion, and then that was about the time when Rob Bell started making Numas.
Yeah.
And so Rob and Sonny, kind of came together, and I came in a little bit late. But the whole point was to make a really great film, something that looked professional.
Yeah.
In 10 minutes, that proposed a point to think about, to talk about. And it had never been done before.
Well, let's talk about those Numas. Did you write actual episodes of those?
No. When Rob Bell writes, it's done. He writes it once, and he can spit it out word for word, not make one mistake. So Rob is a very talented writer, and didn't need anybody's help.
Well, then abstractly, I guess my point is you were involved with some of the ancillary production of those.
Yeah, the B-rolls and stuff. So Dot and Cross literally started out as we were making Numa. And then after that, Marcus Buckingham with Gallup's Strength Finder and stuff like that, he came rushing in. Eric Wall, a great teen speaker, corporate speaker, came rushing in. He paints on stage. Josh Shipp, a teen speaker, came running in. And they were seeing this as we were. Well,
it revolutionized the kind of evangelical platform and how people could digest content.
Yeah.
And this is before like massive bandwidth on the internet. Totally. It was way before that.
I remember printing Numas in VHS tapes, literally. That was how early we were doing this.
But they were so cinematic, and there was a commitment early on to make these unlike anything had ever been seen. But what struck me was just the authenticity, and this is why Rob Bell is who he is, but the authenticity of which they were delivered, and then you put the mechanism of a filmmaking crew around him, and he's got all the Play-Doh he needs to make a Picasso. Yeah. Or no, not a Picasso. A Michelangelo?
There you go.
I promised earlier that I would not use too many metaphors. So I'm trying to cut down as I listen to these podcasts, and I'm trying to edit them. The word amazing. I say amazing way too much. Yes. And then I use a lot of dumb metaphors.
No, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We're still early on in your immaculate podcast career.
I am hitting all home runs.
You are.
You're my next at bat.
Oh, thanks.
And then I hope to, round first with you.
Oh, perfect.
Both physically and emotionally.
Oh, good. It makes my heart beat. Don't tell my wife.
Yeah. I won't tell mine either. But, well, that's cool. So that got you into kind of like what you're doing now, which is a bit of writing for film. You write corporate. There's all kinds of. So tell me what you're doing professionally.
It literally is a strange thing, and kind of over the past 10 years, how I've documented it as somebody has a good idea. Let's say Brian has a good idea, and Brian hires me because Brian's maybe seen a bit of my work. Brian hires me to say, take my great idea and make it the best idea. So then I have a bunch of creative people around me, and I know how much money you have to spend on your project. So I can find this person and bring them to the project and bring their talents and then help you figure out how to make your good idea a better idea. So it's not like I'm not directing, I'm not filming, I'm not doing anything like that. I'm essentially helping you strategically create great content.
I would think of you as a producer / creative director / branding consultant in a sense.
Totally.
All three of those?
I mean, literally, I just started working with a company, a couple years ago, this company called Eskimo out of Los Angeles. They knew a little bit about what I did, and so they were making a film for Kodak, a short film. And I've seen this. They sent me the original script and said, hey, this is the direction we're heading. What are you seeing? Like, what do you like? What are you concerned about and everything? So I sent back the script and said, ooh, I don't like this. This is great. This is, threw that back. And we threw that back several different times. And finally, they went and filmed it, and they sent it back to me. And they said, here it is. Here's the final one. And one of the main parts in it that wasn't in there, I said, oh my gosh, like you have to have this scene in there or it won't work. Like it just won't work. And so they're like, okay. So they went back. And I don't know if they like traveled back out to I think Pennsylvania to get it, or if they had it in the can and they just had to pull it out and put it in there. I'm not sure. But it was a final moment that like brought this whole piece together.
Well, it was. How do people find that? Because it is this Kodak piece that went viral, and it's just so heartfelt. And you've actually there's so much media, but there's so few pieces of media that make you feel something
you
like that.
Type in Kodak short film Understanding, I think is the name of it.
Cool.
And it's about this teenage baseball player who his dad, is the main like father in the house and owns the house and blah blah blah. And turns out that this teenage baseball player is gay, and his little sister finds him and his first baseman kissing in his room, and so she goes off and tells dad. And dad is just so disappointed, living in the middle of America, that this would ever happen to his son who's doing so well in baseball. And so they just had this silent struggle. You'd sit and see him. Dad wasn't watching the games anymore and looking around, and they'd be sitting at dinner, and dad wouldn't look at him, and the kid's just searching for some type of response. And then his birthday comes around, and they invite the cousins over and grandpa and grandpa over, and they're all sitting around having a good time. Nobody really knows what's going on. And so dad had snuck up into, and this is all in the film, into his room, gotten a photo of he and his now boyfriend, and had blown it up and put it in a really nice frame. And his last gift was him opening up this big picture frame with this enlarged photo of him and his boyfriend. in it. And that was his dad's way of saying, okay, it's okay.
And
around. So, and then the moment was they had to get up and show it, right? So that was, I said, no, you got to go back and do this. So Dad gets up, they move to the center of the room and just give a big hug at the end. And that was one of the things I added to it. And anyway, great film. And so they recently came back to me and said, hey, we want to do a picture, a full-length picture of the 2011 earthquake tsunami in northern Japan. And I said, like how do you want to go about it? Like, is it a spiritual thing? Is it a seismographical thing? Like, and they go, we don't know. All we know is there's a really great story there. And if you remember, like, that was a big thing for Americans at that time. We were watching the elderly people who are like in hospice, putting on orange suits and like going through the actual nuclear facilities. Knowing they would be dead soon, but also knowing that they were the people who brought that into the Japanese society, and they wanted to fix the situation, meaning that there still could be people in there that were alive and everything. Sure. So it was just a really massive moment, and I said, listen, I'm not going to create a film for the Japanese people. Like, as not my wheelhouse, no thanks. And so we go, oh, interesting. Well, what if we were to create it for the American audience, so the American audience could learn more about the Japanese society? And I go, yeah, I can do that. So anyway, I went over, I set up a bunch of interviews and just had tons of angles to come in on this. Mm-hmm. It could be through counseling. It could be through, like I said, spiritual practices. It could be through seismology. It could be through the previous, thousands of years of the fault lines that go through there and how they destroy the company, but the country, but the country always gets back up, blah, blah, blah. And I found a couple like really unique angles to tell it. And so I went over there and did all these and came back and kind of wrote a really rough script of what the movie could be. And so they really liked that. And then they're like, well, while we're working together, we have a bunch of great directors here. We need some really good director.
I guess I didn't make the list, the short list.
Well, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. So they said, would you mind? We know that you write. Would you mind writing these? And so I did that, and that was just a blast. Getting on the phone with them, and nobody, like, it's kind of the same with real estate agents. Like, when you hire a director, you want to know about the director. It's not just about what they can put on screen. You want to know how, by working with them, what is it actually going to look like, And so when I would write a bio for an editor, like half to 3/4 of it is about the actual person. Yeah. And we say, oh, they've done this piece and this piece and this piece and this piece, and they were up for this award and this award. But the rest of them is the client learning about the actual person. Yeah. And that's been very, very effective. And it's still coming out now. We're still finishing that up, but we think it will be very effective.
Well, it sounds amazing. Yeah. Just the whole platform of that disaster, and then the humanity inside that, the race to preserve and sacrifice. Yeah, incredible.
So that the whole thing is, am I directing it? No. Am I writing it? No. I'm not doing any of that stuff, but I'm a part of the creative process. Yeah. They're at a level, and they can't seem to get above it. I come in and bring in 5, 6, 7 new ideas, and now this better is.
We'll talk about that creatively, because I think we all get stuck as just a creative platform. It's like you get so deep into the weeds that you can't see it anymore. Yeah, it's true. And you need an outside perspective to sort of shake out what you're so stuck on. Yeah. And sometimes it's a simple tweak, and it reframes the creative's thinking. Or it could be something like, this is a disaster, we need to restructure this entirely. Yeah, yeah. And I think we all go through that as creatives, and I'm sure you've had that perspective too, maybe sometimes with your book, and just getting some other eyes on stuff is such a great...
Totally.
Because you need people to find your blind spots.
Yeah, yeah. And if you want to prove it, go write your own bio right now, and you'll experience exactly what Brian is talking about. Where do I start? But this is important, but this isn't. I don't know what to do. Yeah, that's the best way to figure it out.
Well, it's very hard. The writing, I think, is one of the hardest practices, and I'm okay at it. I can do some things, but to stay immersed in it, I'm so... I don't know how you deal with this, but I'm very much, I'm multitasking, but I'm never completing one task at one time. I'll start an email, it could be paragraph in, and then I'm off on Twitter, and then I'm doing something else, and then I'm responding to somebody on social media, and then I'm working on an estimate for somebody, and then I'm like, oh gosh, I got to get back. So there's always, but writing, like especially a long form book about your life.
Yeah. I mean,
I can't even imagine
doing what you just said while writing a long form book is miserable. Like you won't finish it.
Yeah.
So literally, when I sat down to write my book, it was phones off. I was in an office. I had earplugs in. There were no other sounds that could get to me. And I would sit there for 8 hours. And people say that's a long time. And I say I was able to do this because the story was already there. I wasn't coming up with new ideas. I was literally going back in time, finding new ideas, and literally getting them out on paper.
Yeah.
And so 8 hours a day is ridiculous. But I was only doing it because I was essentially recalling moments.
But you're also feeling, I think, when I've written anything that was emotional to me personally, or something really resonated me to your core, and you're at the same time this guy with inoperable brain cancer, and you're reliving and retelling the story of your life. 8 hours of that at the same time trying to live your real time life.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah, just ask my wife. I would come home many times, like in tears.
Yeah.
Like I can't believe that happened, or I can't believe I'm still here, or I can't believe I'm walking to this house with this woman and these tiny girls running around. Like literally rearranged my life.
Well, let's go back a little bit because your life's so interesting that it is an amazing book, and this book is called Thank You Kung Fu. But so you're at the time that you're not dabbling, but you're working in a couple of creative agencies. You're a writer / all those things that you're a role player in a sense. But you're married to your first wife, and then that goes on for how long were you married roughly?
We were married, I think, like 6 years.
Yeah.
And then 2011ish we were divorced.
Yeah.
After diagnosed in 2009, divorced in 2011.
Yeah. So just as, you're really starting to pick up this battle to really figure out how to survive, right? Yeah. Because you're, on one side, you're like, okay, I have this diagnosis. Okay.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's like, okay, how do I organize my time and energy? It is a battle literally for life or death.
It is.
And you're just getting on a path, but at the same time, your marriage is dissolving.
Yeah. And that's, when you go through that, like the just without a second thought, the number one thing you need is somebody right there with you. Literally,
yeah.
I don't even say friend, I'll say spouse. Like somebody literally goes to sleep next to you, helps you cook breakfast. Like you need just an immense amount of support. And to the supporters out there, I apologize because you know that, and you don't get enough credit for what you do as a supporter. So kudos to you guys. But cancer survivors need it so badly, and so I think with the onset of this whole kind of survivor mentality, not taking the advice of the doctors, kind of going down my own path, a really expensive path actually, and it caused my first marriage to just disappear and just kind of just went away. And
cut to you and I doing a shoot into
my apartment where I'm living by myself, hoping to save something, and just not working out. And then at the end of that, my cat literally falling to the floor dead. I'm going, this better not be a sign, but I don't know nothing.
This story. So is this at this apartment?
No. So when I was gone, gone 6 months, and right near the end of when I was either going to move back in or do something else, my cat literally just fell to the floor dead. And it was like, that was our kid, we had Pegasus. Pegasus was our black cat, and
that was the last thing holding you guys.
It was, and it literally dropped dead to the floor.
And you're like, well, I think this is a sign.
I think so.
I have permission to move on.
And so like one of the last thing we ever said to each other was when we drove out to her parents' house and buried the cat in the backyard. And I said, bye, and she said bye and drove off, and that was the last thing we ever said to each other.
And you haven't had a physical conversation since. Literally,
we went through mediation, but apparently in mediation you can sit in a separate room and not be in the same room as the person you're mediating against. So didn't hear see anything.
My mind's blown by that, especially since. Okay, so can I vent something?
Yeah.
And I'm not even the guy going through it, but like, to what extent? I mean, I just can't imagine having my spouse be diagnosed with something that serious and and then in the midst of trying to figure out, because you have to go through that as an individual, and you have to go through this as a married couple, as you've articulated so well. But that's gone. So you have, like, you're slapped in the face with cancer, and your doctor telling you, don't be an idiot, you're going to die much faster than you should if you choose this. Then your marriage, like, many people, I can't imagine, have been to that type of depth of a low.
Well,
and how did you pull out?
I didn't. I went low. I hit rock bottom. I literally gave up on life.
I'm not saying it. Yeah, I'm totally saying, like, I know, like, you weren't bulletproof because you were. I can't imagine the moments.
It. I mean, it shook me as hard as anything has ever shook me.
And your faith. So it's everything. It's your faith, your marriage,
everything.
Your health.
Everything.
Everything's falling apart.
I was on a extremely intense diet. I was doing all sorts of like alternative treatments. And then when I actually separated from my wife and I was living in the apartment we were speaking of, like, that was the only thing I had to hold on to. So I would like do those like such a regiment of this and then this and then this and then this and then this all day long, just to like keep my sanity about me. And then when I actually moved out, I gave up. Moved out after the 6 months there and was officially divorced. Yeah, I gave up on everything, and then I like packed up a bag and traveled for 6 months. With all the sky miles I had built up with my previous company, I just traveled here, traveled there, and just avoiding reality by just getting away from everything.
But was that, in hindsight, a good thing to do?
Oh, it was.
Yeah,
It was exactly what I needed to do.
You think you needed to get out?
And what I did is I went and visited all my friends who'd moved away, you know?
Right.
All the people who had been in Grand Rapids, been a great part of my life and moved out, I went to see them, and I slept on their couches, and I slept in their spare bedrooms, and I went back to my parents' house and slept in my old bedroom. And so it was just a moment of like kind of like reevaluating life and where do I want to go next and what does this mean, and it was rough.
Well, it'd be harder to stay in stasis in town. So I think that sort of wanderlust, I think, was again, I'm the dude that's not going through that, but in abstractly, I think I would totally do the same thing because. What does it matter keeping a job or staying here?
It does not matter at all.
Your cat's gone, so let's go.
Exactly. My kid's gone. I'm out.
Yeah. So from there, then you're battling them by yourself for a while, and then at some point you decide to get back to Grand Rapids, right?
Yeah, I had to come back. Ran out of sky miles. Came back here, did the mediation as I talked about, and signed the divorce forms, and just was still working on projects. But like I'm always turn out to be like great friends with my clients, and so all my clients knew, and they're like, "How's it going?" And so I had, strangely enough, some of my best colleagues during this moment were actually my business clients. Sure. And then I kind of developed a closer group of friends. Who were, single, they'd stay out late. And so I just kind of gave up on being living a normal life. And I would go out and I would just drink far too much. I'd eat far too much. We'd go dancing every weekend, and just, that was me reliving my early 20s in my early 30s. And just gave up.
I also knew you a bit during this time, and I'm quite a bit older than you, so I wasn't part of that crowd, and I would, there was no way I could personally hang out, although we had some very some friends in common for sure. Yeah. But I wouldn't characterize that time in my impression that you were particularly reckless. I mean, you went out and partied and had fun. But I don't think it developed into anything serious, like you were, medicating with booze all the time.
No. I would say, too smart to do that. I wish I could have said I don't care enough to go do those types of things. Yeah. But I've just got a part of me that's like, don't do it, and I can't break that. So yeah, I was getting drunk, but I wasn't out finding coke and finding just the bottom portion of who I know myself to be wouldn't allow myself to go there. So I was out partying, but it didn't go to that level.
I'm sure you can empathize with people that do pull the ripcord and what difference does it make?
Yeah, totally. And I feel, I know now kind of like what they're going through or what they're dealing with, and to see the level of depth they go down into is hard for me, because I know I was at a really bad spot, and I only went to here, but you were already down here. Like, oh my gosh, helps me kind of understand them as well.
So you get back to Grand Rapids. You are having fun. You're still writing. You're still collaborating with people. And take us to the next step, which is really set the course. Like another moment that changes is what happened next, David?
So when I came back to Grand Rapids, I had a coffee shop I have always loved called The Sparrows. And so I would, even when I was working, if I needed silencer to get away, I would always go off to The Sparrows and write there and do my work there. And so in this middle time, no office, no really home, I was living in my sister's extra bedroom, and so I would go down to The Sparrows and I would write. And
it's a great coffee shop.
It is a great coffee shop. And so then the woman who'd owned it, I had walked in and ordered coffee from her for 6 years in a row, but never got to know her or anything. And one day she said, "You're a writer, right?" And I go, kind of. And she goes, I've got a new project I'm working on called the Creative Youth Center. And she goes, this is where kids, they get done with school, but then if their parents are working, they can come to this nonprofit center to help them learn how to read and write and finish their homework and everything. Mm-hmm. And I thought it'd be great if you would come in and help them learn how to read and write. And I said, yeah, that'd be great. So I started going in there, and I kind of created a creative design squad around this to come up with a really clever name and how the center works and everything. And then doing that, we just started hanging out more. And then I learned that she had been through a divorce and that she was going through a tough time. And she, in the time where she was married, they really had problems of her getting pregnant. And she went to several doctors, and they all said, "You're barren. I'm sorry." And she really wanted to adopt a kid from Africa because she wanted to be a mother so badly. And
even as a single woman, she wanted to adopt. Yeah.
And then her first marriage broke up, and she dated another gentleman for several years. Same scenario, couldn't get pregnant, and broke up with him. But this whole time, not the whole time, but in the latter parts of it, we'd been hanging out and stuff. And she kind of developed an interest in me, and she's like, would you like to come back to my place or something? And I'm like, no, no thanks. I just want to figure out what happened in my last relationship. I do not need to move forward in another relationship right now, so no thanks. But whiskey has its own way of dealing with things. And so we would go out regularly. We'd go out to Rockies and dance and just be completely wasted. We'd go out to dinner and drink far too much whiskey. And so one night, she says, "Can you take me back to my place?" And I did. And one night with David equals one baby Wenzel.
Yeah.
And
very potent.
Apparently. And so after 10 years of her trying, one random night with me apparently is enough. And so we had a baby. And then she told me, and I, of course, flipped out and didn't know what to do and had a whole nother revamp of what is this life all about? Screw you, God.
Yeah.
But then over the next 9 months, we just fell in love. And I would attribute that to the fact that she was never a person in my life who I was lusting after. Yeah. She wasn't this certain woman who I dreamed of being with. She was my best friend.
Yeah.
Just flat out. And we could go out and dance, and we could go out and have drinks. We could go out and do this stuff. And it was awesome, right? And so that's when I realized, oh, wait, no, this is actually so much better. I'm now with my best friend, and we're having a kid, as opposed to this glorious, wonderful, beautiful woman who I dreamed about is now with me. No, now I've got my best friend, and we get married.
It was a real relationship, and you didn't I'm sure before things turned physical, you were sharing all kinds of stuff because there was nothing at stake. So you could talk about your journey, anything, anything was on the table. So she already knew a bunch of your garbage. Yeah,
she knew everything. Yeah. And so, and of course, we had a baby, and then, 2 months later, she's pregnant again, and our second baby comes on 1 full year and 1 full hour apart. So our second baby has the same birthday as our first girl, and then our third one came a couple months after that.
You can't plan. No,
it's ridiculous.
You can't script it.
No. So we've got Marion. I named her. Middle name was David.
By the way, your wife's name is Lori.
My wife's name is Lori. Yeah. Lori Slager. And so we had Marion, and she gave she had births all at home via a local home birth professional, Yolanda. And so we never knew the names, or we never knew the sex of any of the kids. And so the first one I said, either male or female, I want their middle name to be David.
Did she have a hunch? Because I'm forever angry at my wife. I'm resentful about a couple things, and I'll explain in a minute. But did you have an inkling of what the sex was of your firstborn and your secondborn was going to be?
I did, because it was so ridiculous. My dad and I have always had kind of issues and stuff, and I thought this was God's opportunity to give me a boy so that I could fix those things with my son and then go back and apologize to my dad. And this was obvious to me. And everybody, literally everybody, even her mother, who had 6 sons before she had Lori, 6 sons, it's a boy, it's a boy, it's a boy. Yeah. And I'm like, for what I know, looks like a boy. And plus God told me that he's going to mess with me like this. So it's a boy,
Yeah.
And sure enough, it was a girl.
Well, my story is my wife was so sick in the first trimester with hyperemesis, and she was literally throwing up 10 times a day. She was on a home IV just to not be dehydrated. It was serious stuff. And she, in throes of just being so frustrated and so sick and so tired, she'd go, I just know this is a boy. It's got to be a boy. It's got to be a boy.
And he's angry. A boy. He's an angry boy.
And I said, all right, well, cool. I would love a boy.
Yeah.
And then we decided not to, at ultrasounds, we told them not to tell us the sex and all this stuff. So literally, it was as my first daughter was born. I was expecting a boy, and it was just, it really shocked me that it wasn't a boy, because she told me all along it was a boy.
Yeah.
So then fast forward to our second born, she's telling me it has to be a boy. It just has to be. And that was a girl.
Yeah.
And then we had our third child, and I said, you don't get to do this to me again. We are finding out as soon as possible because anyway, so I have 3 girls basically, and I was lied to every single time.
Every time. Yeah.
So you have how many children now?
3 children.
Yeah.
The first 2 were born on the same day, 4 and 3.
Yeah.
In middle of May, and then our last one is Henrietta, and she's born at the end of August 30th.
Yeah.
So 3 crazy girls. They love each other. They fight. They scream. They scratch. They love. It's nuts. Yeah. It's nuts. I barely got out of the house this morning to make it here. So.
Well, and I picked you up, but I only say that because it brings me back to, it's one thing to abstractly talk about your cancer journey and the stuff, and then you did this outside the box treatment, but all along, I would have coffee with you occasionally, and you would literally suffer a seizure while we were speaking. They weren't like grand mal flop on the floor stuff, but you're like, I'm sorry, I'm having a moment. I'm actually having a seizure. It should be away.
Yeah.
And you've had some serious seizures to the point, again, to remind everybody, you have an inoperable brain tumor, and it caused, this imbalance. And so you can't drive a car anymore.
Well, they say if you do have a seizure, you can't drive 6 months. Legally, you can't drive. But this last seizure I had about this time last year, my wife and I were sitting in our minivan to hold our 3 kids. They weren't in the car, luckily, and we were sitting out front of Sparrows, and I was literally about to put the car into drive, and as I reached for it, my body went into a full seizure. The whole bit, I wake up in a hospital after being carted into an ambulance, the whole thing. And so I went through my 6 months, but she's like, no.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Of Lyft and Uber and...
Yeah. And she's just like, I I'm concerned, if you were driving for your life, but I'm also concerned for the other people on the road,
Right.
To have some random person have a seizure and run into them and hurt their family,
Sure.
no thanks. And so, so all this coming down to say, it's been a really rough road, but I did finally come to a place where, I've been fighting alternatively for so long. I said, okay, I'm going to start doing chemotherapy. Mm-hmm. And
I know that was just a huge shift for you because you had fought it. You didn't want those chemicals. You didn't want the damage and all that.
I mean, the first years and years and years of this cancer, like everybody was like, keep the toxins out of you. Keep do anything you can not to add cell-killing materials to your body. And now I'm like literally swallowing them. And so I was just so against it. And then last year in 2018, after this event, this horrible seizure, I went back up to Mayo and they said, you are fading quickly. And if you don't do anything, we're going to stop seeing you. We will no longer accept you as a patient. So you need to do something. And so I said, okay. So I started taking chemotherapy and it starts shrinking.
Your tumor starts shrinking.
Yeah. So, it's really interesting, though, because people are like, what if you'd have done this at the beginning?
Yeah.
Back in 2009.
Don't you hate that logic, though? Yes and no?
Kind of, yes and no. I'll get to the point here. Wouldn't it have been great if you'd have listened to them at the beginning and then you wouldn't have had to go through all this stuff? And I go, well, that's what's interesting. I think life has a really unique way of working and that God knew what I was going through. And God said, David, I'm going to give you cancer. And it's going to suck. And then I'm going to take you through this miserable divorce. And it's going to suck. And then you're going to get some random barista pregnant. And it's going to suck. But then, here I am today, sitting at this table, having this conversation with you, and I'm the happiest I have ever been. So what if I would have done chemo on day 2 of me learning about my cancer? I might still be with my first wife. That was an okay relationship, but not a great relationship. It was okay.
Right.
What if I hadn't hit rock bottom and hadn't escorted Lori back to her apartment? And so it's really interesting to see all these bad things happening in my life, the things I hated to tell people that have led me to, again, this day right now going, no, this is all supposed to happen.
Right.
And it's really hard to explain that to people, especially other people who are going through cancer, to go, I know you've had some just horrible shit happen in your life, but man, don't give up. Don't give up because this is going somewhere.
Yeah.
And it might be death. It might. But
can I ask you a really hard question? Because you're going through something, but you said something that's a trigger point for me. And I just have to be honest, is that, and maybe you didn't intend it this way, but here's the thing is that God gave you things. He gave you cancer. He gave you this stuff. Do you believe that God's intentional? Is there intentionality in him saying, I'm going to put chicken wire in your brain, and you know what? You're going to have a lot of fucked up ramifications from here on out?
Yeah, that's a really, really big question. And it's really, really hard to answer because I do believe that when you first hear about this, the whole your body just revolts and says God doesn't know what He's doing. This is a complete mistake. This is horrible. And when I was actually when I was in the hospital the first time, my sister sent me this article by John Piper. John Piper is an extremely evangelical right, as far as right side as you can go. And whenever I say the word John Piper, people roll their eyes. But nevertheless, he wrote a book. He had prostate cancer and wrote a book. This is what he said in the book. This tumor was specifically designed for me by God. You will waste your cancer if you do not believe it is designed for you by God. It will not do to say that God only uses our cancer but does not design it. What God permits, He permits for a reason. And that reason is His design. If God foresees molecular developments becoming cancer, He can stop it or not. If He does not, He has a purpose. Since He is infinitely wise, it is right to call this purpose a design. If you don't believe your cancer is designed for you by God, you will waste it. And so I'll back that up and say, in my specific story, that is 100% true. Mm-hmm. But then I look at other people's stories and I go, where's the proof that this was supposed to happen? You know, and sometimes you just can't find it. So it's a tough question to answer.
Well, and I wouldn't. People have their different ways of dealing with crisis in their life, and especially health crisis. And I don't deal with anything like cancer. But my daughter was born with a massive, and before she even was born and out of the womb, she'd suffered a massive brain hemorrhage, cerebral palsy, touch and go for 6 months. And many of our friends and people that would reach out from former churches I was at or whatever used to say to me all the time, and it just grinds me, is that God did this for a reason. He's testing you.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. So, and then he's saying, that, what was the third platitude that would drive me crazy? Yeah. Just like, did it for a reason. He's testing you. He's testing your faith, meaning me personally, by inflicting my daughter with something that's debilitating. And I thought, fuck that God.
No joke.
I hate that God.
No joke.
I can't do that God anymore. Yeah. No more. I can't do that. So it shifted in that, but that put me in a fight or flight thing, which I think was very beneficial. And I think how individual people wrap themselves around how do you get through the next day and the next day and the next day. There's no right or wrong for that.
No, not at all. And I if somebody is so dead set from the beginning and has no questions and has no theories, like I worry about them. Like it's the people who think, is this the type of God I serve? Is this who God says he is? Those are the people who you can trust because they're actually asking legitimate questions.
Right.
And I believe that there is a legitimate God who can answer them, but sometimes he doesn't answer it when you ask the first time, If anybody is so set on this is the only way it can happen, like run.
Right.
Because people don't, people don't understand God. The Pope doesn't understand God. Franklin Graham doesn't understand God. He is a mysterious God, and he likes to be mysterious, and he likes to put us in mysterious positions because he's not predictable. And I just had to come to grips with the fact that I didn't ask for any of this. But now where I'm at, I didn't ask for any of this, but now I'm the happiest I've ever been.
Sure.
When it's preposterous that I would ever say that, but everybody has their own stories.
Yeah.
And so...
well, I think the idea was that just abstractly to apply everything. So I guess just to clarify my thinking, and I'm angry at the type of God that other people believed in, and it's different than what I believe in now.
Yeah.
So I also think that you can go through tough times as a athletic team, and you're like down and out and this and that, or you're training for something, and then you experience the other side of pushing through and not giving up and making the most of everything. I'm not equating spirituality necessarily with life, but it's about how life tempers you. No one's immune from crap happening in your life. Yeah. Everyone's going to get a ton of it hurled at your way. Every single person. So the idea of that, there's a common ground there. And I always found the most comfort, oddly enough, and maybe this will bring us to your organization, Bent Not Broken, but what I found the most comfort in were silver linings that weren't my own. So I literally, I hope not to cry. I think I can get through it.
Come on, buddy. Come on.
No, when we were, my daughter's touch and go, we're in the ICU and NICU at DeVos Children's Hospital. And there was a woman next to me, and I'm literally there almost 24/7, holding this baby. And there's a woman next to me, and she says she's got a bandana on, and we're in the same tiny room. She has twins, and one of them's not doing well. One's not going to make it, and one's going to make it. And it's like, oh, shit. It's It's 3 a.m, and we're just talking. And she tells me she has cancer. She has a baby, not going to live. And she has one that's going to make it. And I'm like, okay, I think my daughter's going to make it, but I don't know. But I never forgot her.
Yeah.
I'm like, it can always be worse. There's effects that happen to my daughter, ramifications from her cerebral palsy and all this other stuff. Can always be worse. I always see families that have it harder. And that keeps me going. It keeps me positive. But anyway, I hate to lose
Dude,
it.
This is life. This is true meaning. This is true purpose. This conversation right here, and you have every right to express how you're feeling, to express your emotions. Man, this is life. This is life. I can go make another film. You can go and do another photo shoot. But this is life.
So, but getting back to the I don't want to harp on my particular perspective about what that means for God. What it taught me is that everyone's going through something. And if God is intentionally doing some things to this family and this child to test them, to test their faith, for a higher purpose, and put some children that are innocent at a deficit, then I don't believe in that God. And to this day, I do not believe that that's the God. And if other people believe that, that's fine. But it does not work for me. Yeah. It will never work for me. Yeah. But through that, there's some other spirituality that has sustained me. It's given us our family power and strength and overcoming things. So however we get there is how we get there. But the point is that I'm still seeking. We're all seeking as people, whatever it is, higher meaning, friendship, relationships, shaping now new humans, which you're cranking out at an incredibly consistent
Hopefully
rate.
done with that. Hopefully done with that.
But now you've turned to helping others. Yeah. So is this a good point to jump into that, or what do you? I don't want to gloss over any major things in the book or any other parts of your life.
No, I mean we've covered a lot, but I do think. Having outlasted my 5 to 7 years of prognosis, approaching my 10th, I said, well, God obviously wants to keep me around here for something. I don't know what it is. Maybe let me go see if I can find out what it is. And so during kind of about the time I had impregnated Lori, my friends gave me a necklace. Unfortunately, it's broken. I would show it to you. But it is a small engraving with the Latin phrase on it, bent, not broken. And so this phrase has been with us forever. And there's something to it, and they said, David, we know what you've been through over the past 7 years or something.
Right.
But hold on. We know you're screwed up, but you know what? We're all screwed up, but none of us are broken, And so I really took to that. And so I named my nonprofit that's there to provide support for cancer survivors, Bent Not Broken. And I say every time we get in a room, I say, everybody look at me. You are bent, but you are not broken. Right. Nobody's broken. Nobody is broken. But everybody, that guy, that girl, that guy in the taxi, everybody is bent. Yeah. You're just bent in a different way. And not to say that you're going to die any sooner or later or whatever. You're just bent in this specific way. And so I think people have not changed their mindsets about it, but go, okay, that does make sense.
Well, it's another way to reframe your thinking about something and to take any shame that you feel and put it towards some other direction. Yeah. So tell me specifically, you started a nonprofit. Yeah, and what is the focus of your nonprofit? I know it well, but...
Yeah. So this nonprofit is focused on taking care of the mental and physical sides of cancer survivors. And now, typically they would say, can't they go to a counselor once every week or something? And I say, no, because what we want to do is not introduce them to somebody. We want to immerse them in a concept. And so what we do is we take them for 2 full days. Well, first off, we get to everybody together and we have a really fun dinner. And the only word you can't say is cancer. So everybody has to get to know each other outside of the fact that they all have cancer. Mm-hmm. And then the next day we jump into all sorts of things surrounding cancer. Of course, we talk about conventional treatments and alternative treatments, but we also talk about exercise. We talk about how to de-stress. We talk about how to do daily yoga or meditative states, because this is all surrounding the topic of cancer. It's not, are you doing coffee enemas or are you doing surgery? It's not that. It's such a complete, holistic version of how you live your life.
Well, and these are multi-day retreats that you're doing, and you're now doing them across the country. You had the first few here in Michigan.
I did. And so what's really interesting is when I would set these things up and I would explain it to like doctors, and they're like, we don't get it. Like, we don't understand why you're doing this.
Oh, wait a minute. This is my sarcastic voice.
Yeah.
You mean like the healthcare system and people that deliver it to the masses are really at the forefront of thinking on things?
Well, they've got the money, you know?
Yeah.
And so I go to them and say, listen, we're not saying conventional is bad. We're not saying alternative is bad. We want to heal the souls of these people that are dealing with this. And they go, no thanks. And then, you know, we go to, the last event I threw was here in Grand Rapids, and I literally went to friends and said, hey, you know me, you know my heart, like, will you give to this? And we barely pulled it off.
Yeah.
And so I'm counting on God. I'm going to say, I'm going to take this one step further, and I'm going to go into a city where I don't know a lot of people and see if I can make this happen. And so we've got it all set up. You know, I can find great speakers, I can find great locations, I can find great survivors to show up. And one of the things about the survivors is that we make it completely free for them. When I learned I had cancer, just every penny I had flew out the window.
Yeah.
And staying overnight at hotels for 3 weeks out of a month, and just eating and more, you know, paying deductibles and everything.
Well, let me just make sure that everybody understands. You service people who are at any point in their cancer journey. They could have been just diagnosed. They could have been in the fight for 10 years. They could have been in remission for a long time. But talk about the benefit, this very specific benefit of going away with people who all have the C word. And that immersion. So that's important. It's different than just going off with some professionals, you know.
Very different. As a cancer survivor myself, like, I don't tell my family things. It's things that would worry them. It's things I know would make them concerned. I also don't tell my friends things, because it goes to such a level that, like, they can only handle so much of it before they literally have to go to the next meeting. So there's so much I don't tell people. But when I sit down with somebody who has cancer, literally, if it's the first time I sit down with them, this is my opportunity to, like, share everything. You know, I don't care where he's from, where he's born, what cancer he has. She feels the same way with me, where we can literally, like, just vomit up all of the details of our cancers with each other, because we're in the same boat. And so what happens is that you get these 25 people all in one room. Everybody feels that immediately.
Yeah.
And you can bring a partner. It could be a spouse, best friend, sibling, whatever. But a lot of them choose not to, because they've kind of been hiding some portions of their cancer, even from their closest
just
friends.
Anger. Like, I think it's just everything, resentment. Like, you can finally go, okay, how are you dealing with this? Because I hate everybody right now. I hate everybody. Or I love everybody, or whatever it might be.
And everybody at this place is all across the board.
Yeah.
But it's okay for me to say I hate cancer, and to have the person next to me say, I love cancer. I'm not upset, like, because we both have cancer. We both have this in common.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is that these people just gather around each other. And I remember one of the first nights we were all there, none of these people, not one of them, knew another person there. And that first night, where we weren't supposed to talk about cancer, but of course after dinner everybody started talking about it. We were sitting in the backyard around this great bonfire, sharing just crazy stories about everybody, and we're laughing and we're crying. And I've never seen a group of people who do not know each other at all mesh together so quickly and so just perfectly, to where they are still talking to each other today. And it's this evidence that when you meet somebody who's going through what you're going through, whether or not you feel the same way about hatred towards it or love towards it, like, you have something.
It's the same
in common.
conversation we had about God, right? So it's it's different, and it's all true and real. It's all encompassing. Yeah. But you feel a connection through even just that commonality of, like, okay, we believe in some type of God.
And we're never both going to figure it out. So let's just chat. Let's just see what we can toss out there. Yeah.
We'll talk about, so I'm working with you a little bit on Bent Not Broken with photography, and I want to talk just a little bit about photography and its impact. But I like to ask, because the premise of this podcast is we do a portrait and then we sit down and talk. So I've photographed you a number of times, and you're one of my favorite subjects because no one can really, I don't know, I won't even try to describe it, but you're able to bring a range to the shoots that feels so deep that is amazing. But being a performer and in theater, do you like being photographed? Like you personally, is that a process that you like?
No, I do. I mean, I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. Anytime I can be out in front of people, I always enjoy it. So it's just another way where I can show if it's pain, I know how to show pain with my body, and can force my body to do that. If I'm happy, I can force my body to show its happiness. And so it's just another great way of communication for me. So.
But we've decided, or you asked me and invited me, not that I decided, but we decided to collaborate together on a project for Bent Not Broken, which involves portraiture of people that come to your your retreats. What's the best way to say it? It's a conference / retreat.
It's a gathering. I always conferences.
I like that better.
Conferences and events sound not like black tie, but a gathering
Conference sounds like a business.
A gathering is a bunch of elves and trolls who gather before they go and save the world. It's a much more heartfelt meaning.
Yeah, no, it's way better.
We have a gathering, and people are changed there, and people are coming out as a different person, maybe a largely different person, or maybe at a small level, but they come out different. And so what we want to do is keep this gathering going. Even when I don't know enough people to raise enough money to make it happen, I'm banging on doors, trying to make it happen, trying to find people in Nashville, trying to find people in Omaha, Lincoln, Nebraska to bring together so that they can experience this. And it's hard. It's hard to do it by myself. And so I thought, hey, the more we can get these stories out there, the more we can do it in a very easy, simple way where people can read these stories and go, oh, man, wow, I didn't know that about that person. And then we started talking and came across this project, which we'll call Bent Not Broken.
Yeah.
And to be able to take just a really great photo of somebody, and then in literally 2 paragraphs have this person kind of summarize their life. Mine would be, I was living a great life, and then I learned I had cancer, and it felt like everything was falling apart. And then my wife divorced me and left me at rock bottom. And through a wild, random set of mistakes, I got a local barista pregnant. And we've had 2 more children since, and now I'm the happiest person I've ever been. For me to just say that, and have a great picture of me with a nearly bald head because the radiation practically knocked out the side of it, and to see that I've been through this and to hear this story, you're not reading chapters at a time. You're reading a couple paragraphs, and hopefully you can see the hope that I have in my life. And if we can get 100 of those stories and 100 of those images, this is like an emergency book. Yeah. This is, oh my gosh, our daughter has cancer. Get her the book. And so she's in the hospital, and she's got this massive coffee table book, and she turns the page, and she goes, oh, she's from the same hometown I am.
Right.
Oh, man, she had it in her lungs. Oh.
Yeah.
And they can handle it, but it's not overwhelming. And it all is about, it can include negativity. Because cancer is negativity, but it can also include a lot of positivity. It can include how people change their lives, how people got rid of bad relationships, how people can overcome things now. And so we want to create a book that is heavyweight, like the real deal book, that can be turned to any page, and there will be some hope coming out of it.
Well, it is hopeful in my experience, and I think we've shot 2 conferences, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to shoot 2 more later this year in August. And I know you're fundraising, and this podcast isn't necessarily a forum to, say, give money. But I think if anyone is listening who has some money, that you want to put a rocket ship behind those dollars, it would be to put it at Bent Not Broken, because what we've photographed some people in all stages of cancer. And recently, we've had a couple of people that were at your conferences that unfortunately have passed away.
Yeah.
And that legacy of that portrait, I had a very powerful message sent to me through Facebook. Somebody just by pure randomness was on my website. And there's a section there, and it's kind of hard to find, actually. It's in a personal work tab, and then it's a bent, not broken, and it's like a subcategory.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different images on my website. And she reached out to me, and she goes, my friend Amy just passed away, and I found these photos on your website of her, and these portraits are amazing. But can you send them to me so I can share them? I'm about to do a post just remembering her.
Wow.
And I was like, of course you can have them. Them. But that sort of moment, and it's not a morbid. These portraits are not morbid. The moments that we shoot them are not morbid at all. But it's when things like that happen, you're reminded me all the time of the fragility of time, and that we're not guaranteed anything tomorrow,
totally,
whether you have cancer or me or anybody else.
It does not matter.
But it just impacted me, the power of portraiture, and I try not to be wax too poetic and believe, I'm not, I believe that what creative people, whether it's photography, videography, films, writing, they can move people and move people to action, and they can create some enormously beautiful things, of which, on a very small scale, I feel part of in moving and doing some important work within the framework of photography and a visual medium.
Yeah.
So that's why I respect Bent Not Broken so much, is that I'm able to collaborate with you in a way that amplifies these stories for years to come. It's also a document of who we are right now, this second. We just did a photo shoot. That's you an hour and a half ago, and we'll be different tomorrow. I'll be different tomorrow. But yeah, I would invite anyone, and I'm go at this hard. I don't even care. What's the name of your website? bentnotbroken.org. And
there's one of them is sponsorships for survivors, and I've created a small video there talking about what they're going to get at this event, all 100% for free. We've got comedians with cancer, we've got musicians with cancer.
Yeah.
They're going to be entertained, they're going to laugh, they're going to cry. It's going to be over the top for them, and it's all for free. And we are saying it's all for free, hoping that you can see the value in this, and hoping that you can see that this means something to them, and asking you for some support.
So as we tape this, it's getting towards the end of March, or middle to late March. There's two in August coming up, one in Nashville and one in Omaha. And those are conferences that you can refer people to. I'm speaking to the audience. And you can also support the expenses around those efforts, because it's expensive to put on. It's free for cancer patients, and in some ways I know that you've covered travel expenses for people just to get there. It's that important.
Yeah.
And so your other endeavors, I know we're going to talk again, because for one, your book is amazing. It's raw and real as this conversation. I find it funny that I cried and the guy with an inoperable brain tumor did not cry during this podcast. So if that tells you anything about David's strength. But thank you, Kung Fu. Don't explain the title, because you alluded to it earlier, but it's just an amazing read, and it's going to be, it's already impacted many people, and I would love for more people to see it. Whether you have cancer or not, it does not matter. It's such a great, funny, heartfelt story of
Thank you.
everything in life.
Yeah.
And then your other business is Robin Hood Inc. with a K.
With a K, I-N-K, yeah. And that's the place where you've got a great idea, and I make it a better idea, and you win.
And that's the commercial. That's how you really support yourself. And then
my family.
Yeah, your family. And then also, the other thing, full circle, you are now part owner in that coffee shop with Lori.
I am, yeah. I got a baby and a coffee shop out of it, so, yeah.
Well, on that note, buddy, I love you. You're one of my good friends.
Thank you so much.
I can't wait to see what's up and down the road. And I'm going to see you in
August.
Yeah, it was going to be 2 fun trips.
It'll be great. It'll be great.
Can't wait to experience that. All right, man. Take care.
Likewise.
Thanks. All right, so there it was, that conversation with David. Man, a lot of takeaways. What's your takeaway? Maybe shoot me a message. Comment on some stuff on Facebook here on our Full Exposure podcast page. Let me know what your takeaway was with David. One of my biggest takeaways is if any of you could support in any way Bent Not Broken, it is an amazing organization that David leads up. His 110% objective out of this is just to help people with cancer. And I've been lucky to be at the forefront of some of these gatherings and creating some portraits, and it's very powerful for people with cancer. I'm lucky that I do not have cancer, but I believe in what David's doing, and I hope that if you can help him at all financially, to tip him $50, $100, $1,000, $10, it doesn't matter. Go to bentnotbroken.org and get some more info. Reach out to David. That'd be awesome. Hey, have a great week, everybody. It's good to be back. It's good to be back podcasting. And we've got some great guests lined up over the summer. And we're just going to grow and grow and grow. I hope. So share this. Tell people about it. Push this out. Help me push this out into the world. But have a great week, everybody. Take care.